Good afternoon, and thank you for deciding to come to my presentation. I'm very hopeful that you'll find something that you'll want to take away back to your classrooms, and that you'll be able to use this functionally in your classroom, and then your students will be able to benefit from the information provided. My presentation is entitled Writing Narratives with Natives. I love the alliteration. And sometimes it kind of feels like you're out there in battle, especially when you're writing. You're exploring new lands and meeting new cultures, and sometimes you wage battle. But hopefully after this presentation, you won't have that feeling any longer. I feel strongly when you go to a workshop that you should sit in there and feel like the person who is speaking to you has some experience. I know I have been known to be in a workshop and kind of sit back and like judge, like, all right, that's a great idea, but is it practical? I received my bachelor's from Flagler and Deaf Ed Olympiad way back in 2004. And while working, I was able to take classes for my master's in special education from UNF in 2010. And I have been at the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind. This is my 16th year. So I've exclusively been at the Deaf Residential School. I have not had the opportunity to be out in the county. However, I do have many friends who are in the county, and my husband works also in the county, so I have my ear to the ground, so I get to hear pros and cons of both. If you enjoy my picture, you'll have to ask me later about it. I do a vocabulary showcase every year on Halloween, and we showcase costumes related with vocabulary development, and it is so much fun. This is by far my best costume that I've ever done. I was bouquet. So I'm very proud of it. But if you're interested in doing that in your own schools, I would love to have continuations, especially in the Deaf Ed. Okay. Hit me up later for that. So before I start talking about how I use it in the classroom, I wanted to talk about my feelings about writing and how I felt using the curriculum and kind of modifying the curriculum. I wanted to combat, excuse me, some of the negative associations that kids have with writing. You know, they're automatically, oh, you have to write, oh, I don't want to do that. You know, they have that depression feeling when you get back their paper and maybe there's a lot of errors or that's not what they've written and they can't recognize anything that they initially did. So I wanted to do something that could capitalize on both their strengths in their native language and could provide a functional and positive way to incorporate the English print. I was feeling a little frustrated, or in the words of my IA, I felt some kind of way about the curriculum's writing component. We have journeys. I don't know if you guys also have it. But journeys have a lot of implied skills that they assumed the children were already able to do. They didn't have a lot of intervention or remediation or for ELL students or anything like that really that was fluid and relative to the curriculum and aligned well. Also, it did not provide a huge variety of the different types of writing, of opinion, of narrative, of expository, and I felt like it was my responsibility if I was part of an institution that was sending kids up to third, sending kids up to fourth, and that they were expected to take and pass a fourth grade writing test if I didn't do my part, do my due diligence, and at least exposing them to some writing craft that was appropriate at the language level, and some opportunity to see writing and have a positive experience with writing in general. I also miss the days, the glory days of hands-on writing, where we all wrote a book, where we all got to draw the hot pictures, where each of us took a turn and we spent weeks and weeks and we decided and then everyone was so thrilled, and at the end we laminated it in a giant laminator and then bound it with a big ugly binding that always falls apart and gets stuck. And, you know, puts it on our shelf and then brings it back out and kids read it and love it. I miss those days because with the rigor, with the state standards, those things are becoming less and less of the norm. And that's even in the public school setting. And so I really wanted something that wasn't, I didn't have to start all over from scratch. I wanted to be able to kind of pick and choose and apply and help my students in that way, but I wanted to include those important elements. So my solution was this development of this, I'm going to call it an approach to writing, and called draw, sign, and write. All right, and I feel that this has been very powerful as a teacher in the curriculum. I've shown it with some of my peers, and they have felt positively about it as well. They said, oh man, you know, it's less responsibility on me, and it empowers the kids to take ownership of their own writing skills. So what I like to think is it promotes both languages, their first language ASL, and also incorporates English on top of that. And it does it in a way that doesn't make them feel criticized. It is highly motivating. Students love doing it. They get to use an iPad. They get to film themselves. That is very popular. They also get to draw. You know, often teachers say, oh, it's time to write. We're not drawing anymore. I'm going to see words. We're not going to see nouns. We've been talking about this in grammar. And kids don't want to do that. They express themselves in drawing, and this opportunity allows that and encourages it. You know, I know in the public schools, I know kindergarten, the focus is, you know, draws with details. You know, I mean, that's part of the standard. You know, do the kids draw and include details? There's a lot of rich details that includes from children who don't have language, L1, L2, L3, no language. They have a lot of drawing that they can include, and you can pull that out of it. It de-emphasizes errors. You know, no one likes getting a paper back and seeing red marks on it. That makes you feel bad. No one wants that, and it's certainly not motivating. My approach allows kids to feel more control of what they're presenting, what they're talking about. This is their opportunity to talk about, and how they say it. Recently, I was helping a student edit one of his, and he did not like my suggestions. And it was a good opportunity because it allowed for my student to say, hey, no, you're wrong. I didn't say that. And I don't like it. That's not right. That's not a true representation of what I did. And so we changed it. I said, you know, you're right. I'm wrong. Changed it. That's it. With this approach, it's heavily on the student. They're responsible for doing it. So it allows you more of a freedom to be a resource when writing comes. You get to focus on mini lessons, small lessons, instead of like, oh gosh, this child's writing. Oh, where do I start? You can select, you know, individualized lessons that meet their needs related to the writing. It does allow for hands-on, which is a huge portion. The title, Writing with Narratives, they make their own book. And it's construction paper and regular paper, and we fold it, and we cut it, and we draw, and we do, and it still incorporates those portions that we used to have in the good old days. It reinforces the idea that writing requires several drafts. I know at my school we used to have like authors who would come and visit, and they would bring their books, and they would talk about the writing process. And talking about the writing process and saying you have to rewrite it again and again is different than actually having to write it again and again. And so this approach, they do drafts in different ways. And although they do know they're drafting, they do know they're editing, it doesn't feel like, oh gosh, here's first time, let's redo it again, do the second one, now let's do the third one. It's more naturalized, it's just part of it, and the kids are very willing to participate in that. It also helps for ASL presentation. I know that sounds funny, but after repeated videoing of their ideas, you see improvements in their posture, you'll see more freedom in their expression, you'll see increasing vocabulary or modeling that you may have done in class will pop up in their videos. So it does reinforce their presentation and the idea of the audience. In as much as they know that I'm going to be looking at it, they know that it can be shared with others, such in a statewide conference. So they understand, you know, we may see a little bit of the silly, like, how before they start filming, but it stops, it reduces. So now, I would be remiss if I also did not include needed materials. If I expect you to take this and try and implement it in your classrooms, you would want to know, what do I need to do? I use lots and lots of Post-its. Lots and lots. Different kinds, different colors, it doesn't matter. I like those just regular, perfect square ones. Those are perfect to fit into the Foursquare writing graphic organizer. They fit perfect. You need some kind of, we use iPads, student iPads. We're very lucky enough that students get to use that, but you could use your phone if you felt very comfortable. You could use just your laptop. I'm sorry, I'm getting over a throat pain. But you could use your laptop that has a video recorder in it to record it. It's possible, but you just need to have something that the kids can play back and watch. Paper and pencil, of course, we always have to have that. Graphic organizers. I love graphic organizers. I like a variety of them. I like using them. I like showing them to other people. I have a huge file on my desktop, and I can share it with you later if you want. This is massive with all kinds of different ones that I found through 16 years. Construction paper for the narratives. Everyone has construction paper. And internet access, because we like to use Google search, photo search, when we're typing up some of our expositories. And I would say about 75 minutes a week for if you want to do just kind of Foursquare writing prompt, that's opinion, or personal narrative, or an expository piece. And if you wanted to do a narrative, which I hope you do, you probably need about double. 140, 150 minutes, maybe more, depending on your kids, depending on how it works out. But that's bare bones. That's all it needs. It's pretty easy. Totally doable. Which brings me to the application process. Where do you start? I made this fun little stair-step graphic organizer, if you will. And my husband told me, oh, it's counterintuitive, it should be the other way. You know, but everyone does their brain differently, mine's apparently wired differently. I'm like, I write at the top and we go down. So for me, it made sense. But it includes the writing process. We brainstorm, we draft, we edit, we publish, and we share. So we're going through the process, and at each process, we'll identify, hey, this is what we're doing today. You know, I try and fit each step into one day. So 5 days, 5 steps, we're done in a week. And it includes discussion, heavy discussion, heavy. Not only just me, their discussion, what did she say, how did she say it, did you see this video, let me show you this picture. A lot of discussion. Of course, a graphic organizer, I have to have my graphic organizer. Modeling, introduction to vocabulary, and drawing using Foursquare. Are any of you guys familiar with the Foursquare writing method or the writing process? All right, if you're not, I love it. This is kind of, you can get these books. I think I stole them from someone at work. So you too can steal. All right, I encourage you to go and steal if anyone has this, or you can buy it or borrow it, whichever works for you. If you want to live dangerously, steal it for someone. Not me though. But the Foursquare idea, I initially used it when I was developing this process, because I would take the journeys prompts for the week that the kids were expected to write, and I would kind of modify them as appropriate to my kids. Our first story was Henry and Mudge, right? So they want the kids to say some ridiculous thing, and I was like, no, this doesn't make any sense. And I took it, and so we're going to talk about, you know, when I got a gift of my dog, when I got my dog. You know, because everyone can talk about that. If you don't have a dog, you know someone who has a dog. And if you know someone who has a dog, you know what you do with a dog. And kids know what to do with a dog. So the yellow is the main idea or the topic of the prompt. The idea with Foursquare is that it includes, like beginning, you know, one idea, the second idea, the third idea, and often this is a feeling sentence to wrap up. You know, so it reinforces, I have a topic sentence, and then I'm going to conclude it here. Now for 1st to 3rd grade, it's a little bit lighter, a little bit easier, you know. But I didn't strictly follow the 4-score process. I used it as a guide in developing. So I took the things that I loved from it and I applied it. And for a few years, we worked on taking the prompts from journeys and turning them into 4 squares, the same editing process, you know, overlapping until we could, you know, publish a weekly kind of writing prompt. And I do use those. We start every prompt with that because it's a good holder of organization. You know, deaf kids, I don't know how many of you guys have the same experiences, but sometimes, you know, things don't follow in a linear pattern mentally. You know, you have kids who are like, I got this job. Oh, yesterday I went to my friend's party and back to this. I have homework tonight. Who's my doorstep? I mean, it's everywhere at every time, and sometimes it's very difficult to follow. So I like using this as a placeholder, and it's especially good when they're signing to themselves. They know to follow. I know I'm going to say this one, and then that one, and then this one, and then that. And they can follow that. It helps them to stay organized. Related to our discussion, for brainstorming, it's front load. It is front loading as many things as I can find. Do you have a picture? Do you have something? Do you talk about a dog? All right, what kind of dog do you have? What color is your dog? Does he have long ears like Munch? Is he fat? Is he little? Is he tiny? Does mom put him in his purse? Have you seen that? People bring dogs in the stores. I mean, there are so many discussions and language building activities you can provide. What do you do with your dog? You take it on a walk. Oh, that's cool. Where does it poop? Does it poop in the house? What does mom do when it poops in the house? There's a huge discussion that happens. Did you see what she said? Her dog's name is this. Some kids don't know that dogs have names. So this whole thing is a huge schema building anchor for when we're talking about the topic. I like to include as many pictures as I can. I like to include videos if I can. I make sure every kid watches when we all take turns talking about our animals. I show pictures of my animals. It happens. Here on my link, we were talking about procedure. You know, what can you do? When you ask kids, hey, what's something you can do? A lot of the times it's things they can never do, like go to the store. You can't go to the store alone. How do you get to the store? You know, or they have no idea what they can. Right? There's always the extreme. There's never the in-between. So for this one, I showed students a video of a little girl. She was like, I don't know, 12. And she was showing how she made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so that's how we started it out. And afterwards, the kids were like, oh, she did peanut butter and jelly. And then another kid said, no, we do peanut butter and chocolate. So they are into the Nutella. And we had a discussion about, do we like hazelnuts, do we not like hazelnuts? You know, honey versus jelly, strawberry versus grape, on bread, on tortilla, lots of different things. And that inspired kids to be able to know, oh, I can do something like that. You know, we had everything from I can bake a cake, to I can wash a dog, to I can do an ollie. That is a skateboarding term I'm unfamiliar with. I have a daughter, we don't do skateboarding. But I learned you can do an ollie if you're skateboarding. So this is really the time, and it doesn't have to be written, and it doesn't have to be labeled. We're just fostering communication, like you would do at the dinner table. Like we imagine things are happening in the dorm table at night. Like you would do if you're driving in a car, and you go to the store and you're talking about whatever has to be done. We also discuss feelings. My husband told me, you need to get a suppressant, a cough suppressant. And I was like, I don't know, I don't want to go to the store. I don't want to go to the store. And he was like, you're going to need one, but don't get you drowsy. It's like, I don't want to do that. So anyway, so the discussion is front loaded and it's heavy. The other part, the brainstorming, is after we've discussed. Then I go through and model. Okay, we're talking about, for this one we talked about my birthday. Oh, look at that. Ask and you shall receive. So we talked about our birthday. We did our first personal narrative. Because the story was, Maria? I don't know finishes second grade with Journey. I think it's Maria. It's her brother's birthday. Anyway, no, her name is Camilla. I'm sorry. I'm moving wrong. I know, random details. So I found this personal narrative online. Someone put it out there for free use. I took it and then I edited it a little bit. I cut off the bottom because I really loved the initial start of it to include, you know, the characters who was there with you on your birthday party. Nobody celebrates alone usually. All right, so we had a student. She listed mom, dad, Frankie, Marjani, my brother, and the dog. We're all here to celebrate her birthday. Where does it take place? At home in the month of January. So we can pull in elements, including setting a time, to help children understand, oh, when I write, I can tell them where these things are. Emotions and feelings, she needed to finish before I had to take a picture. And then sensory details. For this student, I wasn't pulling hard for a lot of elements because she is developing language. And we're still working on expressing ourselves fully. So I'm not huge into being very strict about how many elements you have to require. You know, what's nice about this is it can be individual for each kid. All right, so one kid can have a ton of language, and we use that, and maybe their end product is much longer, and we have a variety of digital tools that we can use, or thesaurus, or whatnot. But then you can also have a student who maybe her parents are migrant workers, and so they've traveled around and they've missed schools, and she's been in and out of school, and they are only Spanish speaking at the home, and you know, there's a variety of kids that you can address with this because it is individual. Each kid is going to be with you one-on-one, so you get to determine. Instead of, you know, what's right for everybody, it can be just right for yours. And you can see from her Foursquare, she included 4 different details about her birthday party. The first one, I don't know if you can tell, is a piñata, which was a big discussion. You know, she was like, you know this, and I knew, but no one else knew. Some of the other kids didn't have a piñata at their birthday party. So that was wonderful. We had to Google it and pull up piñata, and she said, no, mine didn't look like that. You picked the wrong one. So we had to go and find the right one so that everyone understood what a piñata was. The second one relates to her birthday cake. I think, you know, we're sitting on the table and there's plates. Everyone's got a place at the table. Lots of presents, okay? Different sizes, all kinds. And also we get to jump on a trampoline. It's a very exciting time when you're talking about your birthday and when you're 7. So this is all included in day 1. So have a discussion. You already know what we're going to ask them. We're going to show them a little bit about setting a tone, and then use this as an organizational tool. I love it to just draw. Just draw on it. Just draw. If you want to label, you label. If you want to write sentences, go ahead and write sentences. But I can guarantee you, most of them just want to draw. Which I love, because this gives a lot of information that she may not have been able to include through the air, and certainly going to be able to include in her own writing. So I already know, look at everyone's taking a turn, hitting it, so she knows what the piñata procedure is. She knows that it hangs in the tree, it's got to hang up high. Not every kid knows that. The table, everyone's sitting around, everyone's got their plate, lots of presents. All right, so in her perspective, we have a lot of things. And look, they're even wrapped, and they have some kind of beautiful decoration on them. So we have a lot of language already in there that you can use to pull out when you're discussing with that kid. So, which brings us to our next, I'm sorry, this is include the organizational tool, the Foursquare. Like I said, the detail, feeling sentence, depending, it may just be 4 details. That brings us to our next step, which is to draft. This is the kids' favorite section because they get to use the technology and the iPads to draft their version in ASL. The kids can review it, and oftentimes after they sign it, they immediately have to watch it. There is no waiting. There's usually like, oh, I finished this, I'm going to watch it now. Hey, no matter, drop what you're doing, watch what I did. I'm very proud of it. It is very motivating. They love it. And they have no problems if the graphic organizer does not reflect what's there, you can say, hey, I noticed in your video, you have this beautiful picture of your piñata, and you said hung in a tree, but you didn't say anything about that in your video. And they're like, oh, I forgot. And they're more than happy to sit down and film it all over again. And the best thing about it is it takes, a second, as much as time, unless you have those exaggerators. You know what I'm talking about, those kids who have the story goes forever. But usually, it's very quick. Let me go a bit. I'd like to show you an initial draft of the personal narrative of my student with the piñata. Uh-oh. There we go, I clarified about the piñata. I was like, where's the tree of the piñata? That's it. So you can tell she loves doing it. This is not a kid that I coerced in any way to sign her version of the story for me. She absolutely loved doing it, and she was happy to go back. I was like, oh, let me include it. All her elements were there. She absolutely stuck to her picture. She talked about her piñata. She talked about her cake and slicing her cake. She talked about all the gifts. She was so excited to get them. And then she also talked about jumping on the trampoline with her brother. So as far as we're talking about writing, does your idea match what you're writing down? Does what you're writing down match what you're expressing? And it absolutely does. And those are critical skills that sometimes we can teach all day, and when it comes, the rubber meets the road and the kid starts writing, it's out in left field. So, but this kind of makes it fluent, what you do with it. So it's twice. So the video drafting gives you a glimpse of their first language, right? So they've drawn in their pictures what they want to share. So this is going to be a reflection of how much language they have to describe each thing. Did she know the word for piñata? No. Could she spell it? No. Could she describe it? She absolutely could. Could I then give her a mini lesson on piñata and birthday words and wrapping and ribbons and bows and decorations and parts? I absolutely could. There's a ghost in here. He loves what I'm saying. So, when I'm talking about the power of being able to individualize and give mini lessons that meet the needs of your students, the proof is in the pudding. We would take that to any parent. Here's your video evidence. You can't argue with me about this. We all agree your child has these needs. If you have an ASL specialist, that's something you can show the ASL specialist. Looky here, this is what makes it do. What do you think is the next step? You utilize what's in the L1 and you bring in the L2. And that can work vice versa if your student has a better knowledge of English. All right, well, let's work on your presentation, because presentation is also in state standards. All right, kids love it. They love it. I've got lots of other videos I can show you. They enjoy it. The video draft can be used as your yardstick, your measuring tool. Hey, I noticed in your next final draft. Where is this cool thing that talks about the trampoline? Or where is your information about your gifts? You include it in your video. Well, you can hem and haw all day. You say, well, let's look at the video. Because our video is our first initial attempt. It's our rough draft. It's the thing that we felt was most critical to include. And so really, it can be a weapon, to get the kids to do, to include what they initially wanted to include. As a teacher, it's awesome because they can all draft at the same time, and you can just kind of sit back and watch. you know, if you had to be in charge of drafting with each kid for paper and pencil, you know, you have to constantly have 20 arms coming out and signing and spelling and writing all at the same time. When the kids are doing their own drafting, they set up their thing, they watch it, they approve it for themselves before they show it to you. And they do not mind redoing a video. It's not like you have them print it and then are asking them to rewrite it all over again. You know, it's as simple as be like, hey, can you do a better video? You know, when you told this to me initially, you were so great, you were expressive, but in your video, you're flat. Do you mind trying to begin? You know, there was one student who, she did a video, and I was like, this is not right. This is not you. If I show this to mom, what would mom say? She's like, no, don't do that. You know, so they absolutely do not mind redoing a video and making it better, especially if it's under the guise of, let's make it better. You know, we want it to be the best it can be. Here's another example of an initial draft of a girl who I had. This is her final product afterwards. Her procedural is how to make a cake. And I will say she did the best graphic organizer for the things that she included. And I didn't take a picture of it for whatever reason. It's in the examples I brought with me up front, but it's amazing. Let's see this one real quick. Oh gosh. Sugar, you know. She knew the ingredients. You know, the white stuff, the flour. Oh, electric mixer, hand mixer. Oh, it's old school. You put it in a pan. My videoing has improved. Okay. You bake it a really long time. Really long time. You gotta wait. This cake is ready. It's good. It's delicious. It's really good. Okay. This shows. I mean, she's made cakes. Her mom and her bake. She loves to do it. She knew the ingredients. This was a very different video than with my birthday narrative. You know, my birthday narrative, she used some things, but not many. This girl knows specific ingredients that go in a cake. And she can tell you, you know, gotta put them on, use an electric mixer, put it in a pan. She knew that, you know, at the time at 12:03, it's ready. I don't know on 12:03. That's just how it is sometimes. And that's okay. It's a detail. That's what we call it. It's a detail. And then this would be an example of what the final product would do. Our next process, some may say, oh, this is the sticky icky, is the drafting / editing version. So after the kids have done the ASL version themselves, I have them on their Foursquare that was done with drawings. I give them sticky notes, Post-it notes, the perfect square ones, and I put it over their pictures. That's one. They then watch their video and then write their version of what it is. All right. In this aspect, I love it because that's when you get to see what's going on in their mind, what word they feel like, what English word they feel like matches their expressions. So their goal is to watch their own video. They know how to watch it and pause it, 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 and write. My role during that time is I am a facilitator. I am their personal dictionary. There's several modes of thought onto that. I prescribe to the throw a blank page on my smartboard, and they ask me, and I just write all the words. Anyone comes in, I'll just be writing all kinds of pinata, cake, you know, dog, leash, bathroom, you know, all kinds of words are there. But the kids ask it from me, I write it, they see it, they copy it down, and move on. My role is not to tell them, a prescriber, of what their comments are. It is just to provide that vocabulary that's requested. This part I'm going to get back to in a minute. I wanted to show you an example of a student edit. Remember I showed you the pinata, the personal narrative about the birthday. So her writing, which if you remember was the piñata in the tree, she has piñata, birthday, afternoon, happy, playing, tree. Her second one related to her cake on the table. My cake blue, sit, chocolate. Her third one, which is about all her gifts. I loved gifts, excited, mom, dad, Marjani, Frankie, brother. And her final one, jump, trampoline, fun, Marjani, Frankie, Mayrani, happy. All right, so this is a glimpse into how she perceives English, what she takes away from her own written expression. And this is not, I leave this, I don't touch it. This is what the great thing is about the Post-it notes. You put the Post-it note, when it's time to edit with me, I have a whole different colored Post-it note that we put on top. But this is a great place to get progress monitoring from. This is a great place to look at data, to see how they compared if you have a portfolio that you can show growth. They talk about, do they have subject, verb, and predicate? Do they know that the beginning of a sentence in English needs to be capitalized and have some kind of punctuation? Can they use adjectives? I have a few adjectives in there. You know, there's a lot of data that you can derive from this, from these words that she requested, that you can apply for IEP, for parent meetings, for progress monitoring, for language development. All right. So, and as I said, my role is as a dictionary. We could write it on the wall, but we also, you know, maybe you have older kids and you want them to be responsible for using their own ASL dictionary. Maybe they're going to take the FSA and that's what they're allowed in an accommodation. You certainly do that too. Have that as a second step. You're like, I'm going to consult the dictionary and then consult me. Depends on the kind of kids you have. At my school, we came up with a handshake dictionary. Instead of the ABC dictionary, you know, kids can't spell. You know, some of us can't spell. But if they know the sign, then they can look and find which handshake that matches, and then flip to that page. And then, so the teacher, the staff, the adult, whoever can sometimes appear can spell it, write it down, and then they have it in their book that they own. And they know to check this book to make sure the word is not there before they ask an adult. So that's an option of something to help someone gain independence, something they can use at home. You know, it's just a different idea. Go back to the initial one. All right, that brings us to the second edit, which is the teacher edit. All right, and the teacher's responsibility changes from kind of sitting back and just providing words. Now you kind of take on a role in the writing workshop as, you know, a counselor. You're guiding them, you're pulling things, you're changing it, you're modeling. Depending on how many kids you said, you know, I have 5 kids, you may have 20. You know, it's not realistic to say you're going to know all 20 stories, but I know the 5 stories of the kids that they tell me their story. So you have to watch their videos, consult the writing, and then you can create a sentence that's appropriate for that child individually. And it can follow the Journeys curriculum. You can talk about as simple as labeling your nouns. You know, all right, that's what you did. Your great sentence. I love that you pulled out your brother's names. I love that you wanted to include a piñata. And guess what? All those words are nouns. And those nouns, if you have a special coding system, if you have a color system, if you have some kind of something that you use in that way, maybe just put a little in for a noun, you can do it any way you want. And then that would kind of overlap the grammar. So it's not taking away anything from their ASL production. It's just showing them, hey, you signed this, you did your best at translating, and then now I'm here to help you. In English, it might look like this. It does allow for student disagreement, which I think is a great thing, because the students, it empowers them to be responsible for their words. You know, how many times do you have to say, you know, you don't insult other people. This person's not stupid. You know, words are powerful, and this is a good tool to reinforce that in a positive way. This is your voice that you're putting it out there to the world. You want it to be the best it can be, and you know, let's focus on using the best words that we can. And everyone's in agreement about that. But when they aren't in agreement about which words of choice, gosh, what a great problem to have. you know, you've written and you're like, what do you think about this sentence? Read it to me, what do you think? No, I don't like it. My student had written a story that he turned into Spider-Man. And he said that he was going home. He was going home too. The kids left, and he left too to watch a movie, right? So I interpreted it literally. I said, he went home too to watch a movie. He did not like choo-choo that was there. He was like, that's wrong. You don't say choo-choo. He felt very strongly about it. Enough, even though after explanation, I was like, but there's different meanings, and he was like, no. And so I changed it. We took it out, and we changed it. And everyone felt better about it. And it empowered him, and he requested it in a positive way. In a way that shows him, hey, you can come at me, and we can have a discussion. It doesn't have to be, an argument. We can say, what do you want? Why do you think that? And let's change it. Writers do that all the time. Our next part of it would be publishing. Like I said, we use the iPads, and so we use the Notes app, because we couldn't get Microsoft Word to work without signing into Google, and our kids don't have Google accounts, and it was just a headache, so we just used the Notes app. And so I like it. Sometimes this can be the longest portion that you do if your kids are slow to find the letters. This will be a good time when you discover who knows their letters. There's a lot of kids that need caps lock in order to identify letters. And if that's true, then that's a remediation in itself. That's a mini lesson that you can easily solve. But you get to see who's fluent with technology and who's not. We always add a picture from Google search. They go to Google search and they find whatever they want. Find it, save it, goes to their photos, click photo. In the Notes app, you click the plus, goes to your Google album, it's like a little file or whatever, and they add it, and then we print it. And the kids love doing it. Oh, I'm gonna add a picture now, and they know the very last thing they do is to add a picture. And sometimes they just scroll and scroll and scroll to find that exact picture. But it also is highly motivating. Here's an example of my student. She's working on it. She's trying to open the Notes app, and they update it randomly. And then this is her final project that we worked on together. She chose her pinata. Now, some of you may read that and see all the red and say, I know I have taught with other people who've been like, oh, you don't print anything in English that's not perfect. There's different schools of thought, I find with my age kids, it is such a huge major accomplishment that we can produce process pieces weekly and post them, that, okay, no, she didn't capitalize all the names, and she didn't do her spacings maybe just perfect, and no, the English grammar is not amazing, but guess what, this is her story, and she can read it. And I'm very proud of that, and she is too. And so you have to reconcile that within yourself, however you use that in the classroom. That's your decision. Everyone has their own things. The last one is sharing. And it's important. You can't write something and keep it private. You have to share it. I post my picture, my students' writing outside the door. And we also have staff members the kids can show it to. They can take to other ones. And, maybe they get rewarded, maybe they get a stamp, maybe they get a smiley face, maybe they get a hug, maybe they get candy. The point is it's something motivating. They're taking their piece that they've created and showing it to another person. In this instance, we have some older kids who are patrols, like 5th grade kids. And one morning, my classroom's right there, and right across the hall is where all the kids are held in the morning before it's 8 o'clock. And I found the patrols kind of reading my students' art. My students' works of writing, which I thought was hugely powerful. I snuck up behind them, they didn't know I was coming, and I took this picture. Because how great, you're in 2nd grade, a 5th grader is reading your papers. How powerful is that? There's nothing better than that, in my opinion. I also have some examples of some procedural expository. Here's another student she's typing it in the notes app. This is her final product, which is very interesting how she swims in that. She explained it very well. That she has that for her pool at home, and she puts it on, and she swims in it, and she goes up and down. She's very explicit on how it happens. I have some more. We did another informational. For this one, we were talking about, informational writing from facts. So what I did is I used the 4 square, but I manipulated the 4 square, and then I put topics. I said, where does the animal live? What special body parts does it have? What do the babies do or eat or whatever? And then, I forget the last thing. But they had to read the book, that was appropriate, and pull out the information with assistance, of course. But here is her draft. I think we have time for it. You guys love looking at cute things. She's so proud. She's like, here's my story. But it doesn't have any pictures. It only has words. Where does it live? Underwater. On the next thing. Dolphin has a special body part. It's got a vocal. Top of his head. Helps him do. I know! The babies play in the seaweed. I'm going to sleep in the seaweed. And then, oh, what did they eat? That's the last one. They fish. Look at her, man. She is intense about this. You knock it off. But for example, we use this book. And how many times in the classroom you're like, I would love to take this instructional book and say that, we can do a writing piece from it. Here you go. All right, now on to the second part. And the first part was more with my expository, my weekly stuff. I wanted to give mention about writing narratives. Writing narratives follows the same procedure of brainstorming, drafting, editing, publishing, sharing. Follows the same, but I don't use the 4 square template. 4 square absolutely can be used, and when you steal or borrow or buy the book, you can see how they suggest to use it. I kind of modified it. Here's a picture of one of my students from last year. She made the most awesome narrative book I've ever seen about superhero Jessica. Her mother's name is Jessica. Is named Jessica. And that was a delight all year. But I always start with a story map. And I've kind of modified my story maps. And I like it that they're pictured, that they're easy, that they're graphic, that they're not complicated. The first one is just the characters and the setting. I have a problem, a middle, and a solution. All right. The problem, and then I also like including a drawing aspect, because drawing is so critical. So many details can be derived from their drawing. And then I also do a storyboard. So before I would have a graphic organizer of the 4 square, and then we would go ahead and draft from that. Here, I require a storyboard because the storyboard has six little frames. The final book that we make with construction paper also has 6 frames. So once they've taken their story and stretched it to 6 frames, it's easy to take the book and say, this picture goes here, this story element goes with it. Now, in the process of, they would still go ahead and sign their story. They would still go ahead, watch their story, and write it using Post-it notes. And they would also come with me, and we'd sit down, and I'd put another layer of Post-it notes on it with the story. That procedure is still the same. And like I said, it's the same process. But instead of typing in the iPad Notes app, they make a book. And that's where we get the old-fashioned, wonderful turning pages, illustrating your own, writing your own. Here is the link. It's like a wiki link or something like that. It shows you how to make a book. You don't even need scissors. You don't need string. You don't need that binding. Just scissors, paper, and glue. You can make your own book. Have as many pages as you want. But I would say it takes about 2 weeks. And it's certainly more involved to do a narrative story, but it's so wonderful. It's such a wonderful experience. Even if you did just 1 quarter, that's still way more experience writing a story and taking it into a narrative that your kids may have had before. Here's some more examples of this little girl. Her story, oh gosh, it was so cute. It was a super story. Her illustrations were just magical. They were like little comic strips in her head. You could just imagine. She took everything that was out there and put it there visually. It was amazing. And here's another little student that she worked on illustrations. And see the sticky notes there? Those are the final writing that she had yet to include. But she had that there, so she knew what to draw. This is an example of the book that we made. I work with first graders too this year. They kind of see me in centers. I know, I'm getting a time limit. But so we discussed this as a class together. We all took a part. They each drew part of the story. They put it in the book. Then they shared it with one of our staff members. And it was, it was wonderful. It's all the story making that you've ever wanted, but you didn't know how to do. Here's an example of my story map, a little bit closer without so much stuff in it. And I'll be happy to share those with you. If you don't want to have to review, you just email me. I'll give you everything I have. If that means that you're going to do it too. This is an example. I just take construction paper, and I fold it in half, and then I fold it in thirds, and that makes 6 little panels. But you can do something simple as this, like a movie strip. That's what Disney animators use. They use a storyboard. So certainly your students can too. Here's the 4-square template. So this is for procedural. So I would include, I can make, what can you make? Peanut butter, cake. I know sometimes I can give a dog a bath, scratch it out, and just rub it right there. Here's the personal narrative that I like in the new color. I cut off the hook because my students were not ready for that element. You decide how many elements you want to include. You want to include hooks, you want to include descriptive words. It's your decision. The beginning, middle, end. I don't know about you, but my kids struggle with the ending. It makes it easier when there's a graphic representation. Here's a fun thing that we did, and I utilized a lady's idea online related to main idea and details. We were reading about severe storms, and so our book has hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards. But I threw that out because we don't know anything about blizzards in Florida. Stupid that we didn't learn about that. And thunderstorms. And so instead, I gave them the main idea as what they're writing about. And then I put 3 pictures on where the details would go. And so I gave that to them, then they cut and pasted it and put it in their 4-square, and then they had to come up with facts that supported their main idea about hurricanes or, tornadoes or thunderstorms. And that was a fun twist in the idea of main idea and how you can get your kids to write main idea with pictures. That is also a very hard topic. I wanted to tell you that I have examples of the students' work up here with some of my rubrics. I'm happy for you to look at, touch, peel up, but do not lose. You can keep these as a portfolio all year. At the end of the year, you show growth. Like I said, you can use it for, noting how much language or what structure is being used, styles and elements. Here we have a recent story with the graphic organizer, how they used it. One thing of note, though, when I did this story and we talked about the character and problems, I kind of limited that, and I gave them 2 elements, so that they only had to come up with the solution to the problem. So, I encourage you to come up, look, ask me questions, talk to me about what you want. I'd love to see you using this. It's simple, it's easy, your kids love it. It's a great way to include writing if you're struggling or if you're not sure what to say. Do you guys have any questions?